Hello everyone, welcome back to the Daily Wrap. Well, it's the morning after the night before. The Reece Hodge verdict came in, and not only the verdict, the sentence as well. Obviously found guilty of a high tackle to the head of Yato. He was given 6 weeks, reduced down to 3 weeks. Overall, everyone's kind of shocked at the length of that sentence.
Yeah, I think everyone in Australia is really surprised, but I was really interesting to see a lot of the reaction from particularly the Northern Hemisphere commentators and that sort of thing, because this is pretty regulation now. As soon as you make contact with the head, it's a mandatory entry point of 6 weeks as a mid-range offence, and then really only good record, which Reece Hodge does have, is that's the only way to really reduce his sentence, and that's what happened to him.
Certainly been mixed reactions. Yeah, the Wallabies have until Friday night to lodge an appeal over that verdict and sentence, I suppose. We're not quite sure whether they will, whether there are grounds for appeal. They will be investigating that over the next little bit. Yeah, you mentioned the mandatory 6 weeks. I think that's what caught everyone by surprise. That's a new sanction regulation, I suppose, by World Rugby that they brought in a year or two ago, amended it again this year. If you get found guilty of contact to the head or neck, you go for 6 weeks. So it goes from not guilty to 6 weeks, which to me seems like far too big a jump. I think most people feel like Reece Hodge, prepared to give it that he was guilty of contact there with the head, but 2 weeks seems like about right. Yeah,
and exactly right, exactly what you mentioned there. The big thing as well is that they don't really make a distinction between intentional or reckless, and even though the panel conceded that Hodge's tackle was reckless, not intentional, it didn't have an impact on the ultimate suspension, which seems, a little bit bewildering, particularly, I guess, for an Australian audience coming from NRL and AFL, where that's such a critical part of their tribunal systems as well.
3 weeks is a long time in a World Cup. It's a long time in any competition, but a World Cup in particular. Look, Reece Hodge will be devastated by that, no doubt. It's a lesson learnt to players all around the World Cup, and we've come up to Wales' press conference today. The Wallabies have a day off. And Jake Ball, who used to play for the Western Forces, moved to Wales and is doing well for them, said that's definitely an issue for those guys to keep an eye on. You just got to get it right.
For me, looking at that hit, I think is probably was the right decision. It probably was a red card offence. You can't really get away with it now. No arms and any contact with the head, and that's the way things are going to go. So, as a player now, all we can do is try and avoid that situation, really, and sometimes it's not easy. Things happen very quickly in the game.
So high tackles, discipline, refereeing. It looks like we're going to be hearing a lot more out of this in the World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. We've already seen 2 more players cited after Reece Hodge, 2 Samoan guys. They haven't had their hearing dates confirmed yet, but you'd expect, given those instances, that we're going to be seeing a few guys missing weeks of this tournament.
It really will be interesting to see what happens to those guys. You'd argue that there was a lot more sort of aggressive intent, as you pointed out, Beth. The Wallabies, yes, as I said, they've got a day off. They're resting their weary bones. Team naming on Friday. What are we expecting from that, Beth? It's sort of up in the air. They're going to obviously have to replace Reece Hodge now. But other than that, are we expecting mass changes?
I wouldn't think there would be a huge amount of changes. I mean, I think maybe the key one is looking at whether Will Genia starts, given he played so well off the bench. But, on the flip side of that, do you keep him up your sleeve so that in case, they have a crunch situation against Wales, that he can make a difference like he did? I can't imagine there'll be a huge amount of changes. But, as you said, that winger spot will be up for grabs. Yeah,
the obvious candidate there is Dane Haylett-Petty, who was on the bench at the weekend. So you can see him slotting in there to 14. To replace Reece Hodge with Adam Ashley-Cooper on the bench. Jordan Petaia is the interesting one for me. He still has a hamstring niggle and isn't ready to play this weekend. I wonder whether, if he's not ready for the weekend after, they start to look to maybe make a replacement there and bring in some more back three cover, I suppose, because Reece Hodge cannot be replaced at this tournament. He's here for the duration. So Wales and the Wallabies will be a huge match. Most likely the winner of Pool D will be determined. But Beth, there was a huge surprise in Pool D yesterday.
Yeah, Fiji losing to Uruguay. It was a massive shock. The South Americans won 30-27, and it's by far the biggest upset of the tournament so far. And it really does, put the Wallabies in the box seat to claim that quarterfinal spot. And if they beat Wales this weekend, that dream quarterfinal draw, potentially avoiding an England matchup in the final 8.
Yep, so they're always tight, and we look forward to the team naming tomorrow, and then, of course, the mega match against Wales on Sunday. We'll be back with more Daily Wrap tomorrow.